There are numerous good quarterback options from the transfer portal. It doesn't have to be Rocco Beck, Brendan Sorsby, or anybody else with a ton of experience. There's value in the quarterback market, and we're going to talk about it on the Portal Podcast.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 place to get your sports podcast. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you want to stay in on the action all season long, just visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets for the rest of the season. We're going to be talking about on and off the field, just how valuable it is to have quarterbacks that you have a balance with, not just seeing their tape, not just having phone calls with them if they're a transfer quarterback. What are they like off the field? How do you do that? What are the backdoor methods to find out, hey, is this young man really going to fit my program? Or am I taking a guess? And remember, quarterback's the most expensive position, so this is a very important topic later in the show. Evaluating quarterbacks without much film and experience. That's the other part of this. How do you do that? It's one thing to recruit a kid in high school. He goes somewhere, and for whatever reason, he doesn't win the job. He gets beat out. He's ready to try something new. But now he doesn't have much tape, if any. How do you grade it? We will discuss that. And at the beginning of the show, to kind of get into that, I want to talk about two quarterbacks that I knew from the high school ranks. Saw them play several times, Elite 11, high school games, etc. That would be Kenny Minchey and Air Norland. Mincchi went to Notre Dame for 3 years, never started. Air Norland, he's a guy who went to Ohio State, then South Carolina. A couple of years, hasn't had any chance to really play. What is the deal with these kids, and what's it like to get to know young men like this off the field? Here's the key. If somebody called me and asked me about Kenny or Air, either one of them, number one thing is this is not a young man that's going to embarrass your program. Everybody wants to talk about the tape, the arm strength, the athleticism, and both these guys have all that in terms of their athleticism out of high school, what they did in high school, Elite 11, etc. That's great. But the bigger key, the number one key, if you're the quarterback, how are you going to handle yourself for that program? Fair or not, quarterback is the face of a program, even one that runs the ball a lot or is known as a defensive-minded team. Look at Georgia. They've had some pretty good quarterbacks, but Georgia's known as a defensive team. Who's the first guy that's going to get talked about on game day or any other show? It's probably a quarterback. Kirby Smart knows how to run a program, but that doesn't mean the quarterback gets pushed to the side. The media wants to talk about the quarterback. That's not going to change. So you need guys that can do that. Kenny Minchey, I can just tell you from being around him 3 years ago, Elite 11 out in Los Angeles, that's a guy that I would put my signature on in a heartbeat. Air Norland, I know him even better. Great guy. I've known him since he was a freshman in high school. That's a kid that would absolutely fit in just about any environment. Those are the types of kids that these coaches want. If they're going to take a chance on a guy that doesn't have much college film, that part has got to be a checkbox. And it's got to be signed off on by multiple people, from talking to people in the NIL space, college coaches, other scouts. When we talk about the guys that are transferring, they don't have much experience. One of the things that automatically comes up, what's the young man's personality like? Who are the people around them? That's the extension of it. Are they going to be low maintenance? Those are things that you just have to have. So with that, I just want to break down my thoughts on seeing those guys in high school, because again, they were always good to me. And I just want to kind of give back. Here's the bottom line. Mincchi is a guy that I was told was as good as anybody on the chalkboard. That's very important. A lot of the quarterbacks that I'm hearing feedback about that are now going into the portal, it's because they can't win that battle. Your arm strength is important. Your mobility is important. Your ability to change arm angles, to look off the free safety, all that stuff's important. But if you cannot understand post-snap reads in some capacity, it's not going to work out. Kenny Minchey will win that battle. Secondarily, he's a guy that is so mobile that it's not him reading the defense, it's the defense reading him. He's a guy that can do a backflip. He's a guy that can make guys miss. He can make somebody miss like he's a slot receiver or running back. That helps. To that end, we know that he's pretty good because CJ Carr is a talented player, and he almost beat him out for the starting quarterback job at Notre Dame this year. Kenny Minchey's obviously pretty talented. If you watch any of CJ Carr, you know he can spin it. If he beat Mincchi out, that tells you something. And at the same time, it tells you something about Mincchi. Like, those guys are obviously talented. Now, the other part of it. Mincchi made it at Notre Dame for 3 years. That's not an easy school to make it at. Academically, the kid sitting next to you is in the top 1% of his high school class, wherever he's at. Some of them were valedictorians. A lot of them probably were. He's probably going to be a good representation for you. For Air Norland, he's a kid out of the south side of Atlanta, College Park area. I don't think there's any doubt that he was a guy that everybody knew early. He played for Cam Newton's 7-on-7 program, etc. Everybody knew he was a special guy. He's a hooper, athlete, but he always had a smile on his face, much like Mincchi, easygoing, always happy to talk to you. Give me that guy 9 out of 10 times. The only time I wouldn't take him is if you can get the Brendan Sorsby. If you can get the Rayola or something like that, and it's a perfect fit, okay, maybe. But I'm telling you, there is a lot of value in Mincchi, and for that matter, Air Norland and several other guys. I got a few other I'll talk about in the second segment, because you're not going to have to invest as much financially, and you're going to know that you're getting good kids and the people around them are good people. That is very, very important. All these schools looking for quarterbacks, those are two that should be on their board. And here's the other little segment to this. Not everybody needs someone to start day one. Not just Mincchi or Noland, but just hear me out. Some of these guys that haven't started yet, if they've got 3 or more years of eligibility, it's okay. If you take them and they're the heir apparent, you've got a guy that's going to be a 5th-year senior, don't forget about that. They'll be cool for the year behind. Now, Mincchi's probably looking for a starting gig. He's got 2 years left. Noland, I think, has got 3, so that's a different deal. But both of them, very, very talented, and they're going to make it happen off the field and on the field. Good in the locker room, all that stuff. It's very, very important. Now, before I go into the next segment, just remember, quarterback money is a little different with NIL. How you use it is up to you. The guys that, just from talking to people in the NIL space, that do a good job, they find somebody that represents them, get a good agent, long-term deal, 2 years, etc., spread out the money with a lot of incentives. If the schools do it right and they work with the right agents, they should be able to make this work for anybody like an Air Norland, Kenny Minchey, etc. It won't be that hard. When we come back, I want to talk about the evaluation process. What kind of questions do I get and do other people get when a kid's transferring that doesn't have a ton of tape and he's a quarterback? You really want to see guys with experience, but not everybody plays, and that's why they're in the portal. That is next on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is at its best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a quarterback gets hot, a defense tightens up, and the momentum flips with one big play. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment whenever you want. Live spreads and money lines will adjust instantly whenever the score changes or a player gets hot. Player props will also expand, and they will change as the game moves on. So you can bet on anything like touchdowns, drive results, totals in a game, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right there in the middle of the action, like the Colts play 5.5-point spread, I believe it is on FanDuel, there's a different way to look at that game than just this point spread. You can go into player props and everything else. And so you can visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. I'm Brian Smith. Thank you for stopping in. Please like and subscribe. And if you have not already, why don't you take it to the next level with our Everydayer Club? This is something that is a lot of fun for us because we have really grown as a network, and this is the next step for us. Everydayer Club's pretty simple. You're going to get free audio on your downloads to go. So if you're going to the gym, if you're going out to the grocery store, if you're taking a long car ride, and you just want audio without the extra commercials, $5 a month or $50 in a year. Plus, we also have a Discord, got national and local teams. You can check out all kinds of things. There's a link down in the description of this show, no matter where you're listening or watching this, that you can check out. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club. All right. Now, how does the evaluation really work when guys don't have much film? There are a couple ways to look at this, and you can take it any way you want, but college football has a lot of different people that are really happy to kind of look at this and go into it from a different perspective. A lot of guys are, shall we say, not really, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not really going to go out there unless they trust that guy. They really trust that guy. And a lot of people like Kenny Minchey, for instance, he'll probably get a few from Notre Dame, but it's not just that. They're going to go and they're going to talk to high school coaches. They're going to talk to the people that train Kenny or anybody else. There's a couple others here for an example. Aaron Philo, Georgia Tech's quarterback. He's in the portal. He broke all kinds of records in the state of Georgia, goes to Georgia Tech. He's been behind Haynes King. That's kind of rough, but he's in the portal. Is he going to follow Buster Faulkner down to UF? I would imagine he probably will, but if not, the relationships that he's gathered so far, including Faulkner, if he decides not to go there, it could help him get somewhere else. People are just going to go down the list just like you were applying for a new job, especially if you're trying to move up a ladder. They want to know who you've been around. Were you a problem? Were the people around you a problem? So your recommendations, and for those of you watching on YouTube, there's a reason that I put that on there. It's literally a recommendation. It's no different than like getting into college or getting a job. Quarterback especially. They're going to want to know what this is like. Hey, in the film room, is he going to be somebody that's texting on his phone? Or is this going to be a guy dialed in, asking questions and making points to help not only himself, but our team better? The reason I bring that up is I actually spoke to somebody today about a kid that's an elite player that's now out at a major SEC program because he couldn't stay focused. He was texting in meetings and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to fly. I don't care what level of recruit you are, that's not going to work. And then finally, like they're going to ask questions about your habits away from the facility. Film study. Are you a partier? Are you somebody that's going to stay out of trouble? Are you a late night guy? Or are you somebody that stays a little late, watches film, knocks on the coach's door? Those are the kinds of questions that come up with a very, very high number of times, like all the time. I get those questions constantly. And unfortunately, there aren't enough of those guys. That's why people ask those questions, because you can go around, okay, how much film does this guy have? We can eliminate this kid because I spoke to his coach from 2 years ago. And while he was great at practice, he was the knucklehead who was out smoking weed, being an idiot. You can't have that guy being your quarterback. You've got to have guys that want to go and practice, go to class, have the right attitude in front of the camera, and are going to be early to rise after a good night's sleep, not just out partying. That's how it works. Is that fair? Probably not, but quarterback's not fair. And the money is also really great. So there's a give and take with it. These are the things that I've been told over time and things that I've witnessed, and it's not changing. I'm dealing with that right now with a few different players that I speak to at the high school level. Like, how are we getting evaluated? What should I expect? Those questions. They ask them too, because they want to know about coaches. It goes both directions. But again, recommendations. If you learn nothing from this second segment of the show, it's very valuable. Here are a couple of kids that I want to use as an example, and it just shows you the difference and why a recommendation, just one, that is very important. You got Mincchi this year, was 20 of 26 for 196 yards at Notre Dame. He's behind Carr. Now, he ran 7 times for 84 yards. Okay, he's very athletic, but that still doesn't help you about off the field. If he doesn't get the right recommendations, and again, I'll be shocked if he doesn't, it's going to be hard to get a good gig at another school. At the same time, take Colton Joseph, Florida State, Florida, and a whole bunch of schools have really inquired about him. He was the Old Dominion quarterback. He's from the greater Los Angeles area. The guy went all the way up to Virginia. He tore it up. He threw for just over 2,600 yards, 21 touchdowns, 10 picks, and he also ran for 1,000 yards. But he did it at Old Dominion. So those recommendations are different. Obviously, he's an athlete. He ran for 1,000 yards. But how is he on the chalkboard? Is he the kind of guy that can take that next step forward? He only completed 59.7%. What's it going to be like in regards to, hey, is this guy able to dissect a defense that does a lot of changes after the snap? Can he play SEC Big Ten level? Or is this a guy that's going to come in here and it'll be good against about 8 of our opponents, but those top 4 defenses, he's going to get his head knocked in? They're going to ask direct questions like that. It's not easy just looking at film, like, no offense to Old Dominion, but they play a couple really good teams. They played Indiana, Virginia Tech. Compared to their talent, like, Indiana's about as good as anybody. Tech, even though they weren't great this year, it's still bigger, faster, stronger. He had a couple touchdowns, ran the ball pretty well, had like 70-some yards rushing. That's a sign he can handle a little bit more. So it's an advantage to him. But that next question is still the key. How can he handle the ability to learn the defenses, get a little better? We need better than 59.7% if we're going to dump $2 million plus into a quarterback. I think that's fair, and I would hope that most of you do too. To that end, one more guy, and this may be the most fascinating player, depending on how you want to dissect it, in the transfer portal this year. Drew Mestemaker, the quarterback coming out of North Texas. He's a redshirt freshman, didn't start in high school at Vandergrift High School down in Austin, Texas, but goes to North Texas, and Wardley knows what's going to happen with him. 6'4", 210 pounds, 292 of 416, 70.2%, led the nation with 4,129 yards, 9.9 yards per attempt, 31 TDs, 7 interceptions. As a redshirt freshman who never started in high school, his upside's through the roof. And I think most people expect him to follow Coach Morris over to Oklahoma State. That's the guy that was at North Texas. But like anybody that's inquiring about him, they're going to have those questions too. Okay, it wasn't elite competition all the time. He could obviously spin it. How can he handle those things? He's still going to get those questions or the recommendations because the money that's being talked about for him is ginormous. It's not going to be the same for Kenny Minchey. It's not going to be the same for Air Norland and some of these other guys that haven't played a ton, or even a guy like Jaden Craig, who was at Harvard. I don't know how you grade him. He threw for over 2,500 yards this year, but he was at Harvard. All these questions about the back end, how he acts, what's going on, that's huge, man. That is absolutely huge. So people that don't look at it from a perspective of broad don't get it. There are a lot of people that can examine film and understand, but when these guys don't have a ton or they're from a lower level, it's different. You have to ask different questions. You have to investigate differently to get any kind of availability of what he's going to do. Like, is he capable? Is it going to get him not just a little better, but is he going to take that major step up? Any of these guys, pick whichever one you want. So that's what it's really all about. Before I end, let's go into the comments here. Katie, let's see. Of the 5 million one and done quarterback is upon us. Oh, okay. The year of the 5 million one and done quarterback. I'm curious, will anybody make $5 million? It's possible. Reportedly, and I certainly don't have insight on this, but Drew Mestemaker allegedly turned down $3.5 million to go to Indiana. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a lot to turn down. Some other quarterbacks Colton Joseph, Florida State, and other schools looking at him, he may have played at Old Dominion, but if you got those schools looking, that number could be $3 million. Wouldn't shock me. What about a school that is really close? They think they've got a lot. Look at Lane Kiffin at LSU. What if he could get the Arizona State quarterback or Raiola or something like that? What could that total be? LSU reportedly has deep pockets, and for those that haven't heard, this is unique. Our guy Matt Moscona over at Locked On LSU brought this up. Nike, which LSU is a sponsor or sponsored by Nike, they are doing 10 players at LSU that they're doing a special deal with. Different sports, not just football, but that stuff's going to come into play. Now that Nike's doing it for LSU, there's going to be maybe Miami does Tennessee, or Adidas does Tennessee and Miami and A&M, etc. Notre Dame's Under Armour. This is unique. We'll see if some of that ends up coming into it. I think some of the backstories this spring and early summer will be fun with that. I think there's going to be a lot of different people that get involved to try to get, as Katie says, the $5 million quarterback for 1 year. It's possible. I don't necessarily like it, but I could certainly see it. Brendan Sorsby at Texas Tech, I think he'll make about $4 million this next year, if not more. I think he's the safest of the top end guys. Sam Levitt should be up there pretty high. Rocco Becht, I was texting Rocco a little bit ago. He's a guy I knew when he lived in Tampa and I lived there. Great guy. There are so many good players that are in the portal that are quarterbacks. It just depends on the fit. And again, the evaluation to find what they're going to do, that's a big part of it. Kenny also says the era of the one and done is upon us. There you go. The portal has completely blown up the quarterback myth of the student athlete. Here at Miami, Mario's 20+1 and done portal players a year don't even attend classes. That's funny. Wouldn't be surprised by anything. What's going on, Raymond? Hope all is well, my friend. There are a lot of kids that are skipping class. I ain't going to try to get into that. That doesn't surprise me. I'm curious, though, which guy is the first quarterback to set the market too. This is where I'm going to leave it today. Is there going to be anybody that truly sets the market? And what I mean by that, if it's Sorsby, he's probably going to Tech. His girlfriend is transferred there and he's from Texas. If it's Tech, is it $4 million or more? And how does that impact somebody else like a Dylan Raiola or a DJ Lagway or a Colton Joseph or a Rocco Becht? Because some schools may have to pay a little more if Tech is the first one. Just something to think about. What else we got here? Katie. Carson Beck got a lot more than what was advertised. Wouldn't be surprised by that either. You can get money behind the scenes too. There's also deals on the side. So that initial contract's not everything. Keep that in mind. With that, I appreciate everybody stopping in. Truly enjoyed another show talking about quarterbacks and some of the players that I know. But I wanted to give insights on how the portal process works for some kids. And the ones without experience, man, that is complex. What goes on off the field is very important, and how those backdoor conversations transpire, that is also a part of it. Thank you very much for making the Portal Podcast part of your day. Please like and subscribe. We will see you again soon.